Welcome to the Daily Influence, where our mission is to deliver a daily dose of positive influence that can uplift you personally or be shared within your sphere of influence. While not every episode may directly apply to your unique circumstances, we strive to provide insights and inspiration relevant to most people's daily, weekly, and monthly lives. Whether you are tuning in during the morning, noon, or night, the Daily Influence is here for you. Listen, share, and embrace the power of influence in your life.
Hey everybody, Brian Smith here with the Daily Influence, and we are today going to continue down our discussion about communication, and we're going to tackle self-communication today. And self-communication really is the equivalent of looking in the mirror and talking to yourself. It is something we do all the time in our own minds. We speak to ourselves continuously. Some of us do it out loud. People hear us actually talking out loud. When we're talking out loud, we're using that as a way to affirm or to remember or to move us through whatever issue or influence that we're facing at the moment. And different people have different ways of self-communication. And within self-communication, we do things that oftentimes set us back or set us up to have a more difficult path of communication and action for ourselves and others. Healthy self-communication is a good foundational communication tool to have. It's also a good tactic to use to get through some difficult times. And that's really what we're going to talk about today, is how can we use self-communication or understand self-communication to better provide us tactical ways and internal ways to deal with the things we face on an everyday basis. One of the things that's really important about self-communication is honesty. I find myself, and I hear and know that others, we oftentimes fib to ourselves about our abilities, our understandings, where we sit at a current moment, where we're at contextually at a current moment, and these mistruths to ourselves, the way that we fool ourselves to move forward through something that we might not be comfortable with, but that we believe that we can tackle, set us up for compounded or additional challenges. And it creates for us opportunities, well, for failure, which, yes, are lessons, because every failure is a lesson, but a lot of times they're unneeded lessons. They're things that, had we slowed down and been honest with ourselves earlier, then we might not find ourselves in a situation. Imagine, if you will, that you're working with a partner and you and that partner are collaborating together, and that partner is giving you half the information, and you are making decisions on less than all of the information. We sometimes do that to ourselves. We do that when we go too fast and we don't do enough research, and we convince ourselves that we're going to make a decision even though we got lazy in the data collection process. It's tantamount to that. It's just happening internally. When we skip through pages, if reading a report, or if we flip forward or push forward through a recording, or tune out a portion of a meeting we're in and distract ourselves, we're lying to ourselves if we think that we can be effective. And that's another way that we communicate with ourselves in an unhealthy way and set ourselves up for negative challenges that we otherwise wouldn't need if we would just slow down and communicate with ourselves and allow communication to happen within ourselves more mindfully and more intentionally. When you begin to communicate with yourself more honestly, you'll notice that you communicate with others more clearly. You'll find that the practice of clear and contextual self-communication yields clear and more contextual external communication to others. You'll find yourself communicating in ways that people appreciate more. Less mistakes are made, less questions are asked, or the questions that are asked are more detailed and more pointed because you've provided them with the information needed to ask more questions and more details, and you're allowing for them to engage. And that's where communication can develop and influence tactical changes and improvement in your areas of influence. Is doing so more honestly with yourself yields more honestly with others, yields better tactical engagements with others. One of the things we can do with self-communication that's very dangerous is we all know what is in our own minds. We know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know also. But what we surely don't always know is what other people do not know. And what I mean by this is that I can have a conversation with somebody, and if I already know what the results will be, and I start only talking about the benefit of the results of something that I want to do, they have no idea foundationally how I got to those results. It leaves gaps. How can I expect somebody to agree if I'm only giving them what the results will be? That's not effective communication unless you're asked to only give results. But if you're trying to engage with people and actually have a contextual discussion and get feedback and get buy-in and get a true sense of their input, then you can't skip to results. You can't skip parts that are important. You can't gloss over negatives and only highlight positives. You have to be in context. And context is really the part of the communication that, when misused, can alter the future of so many things. Not having clear context is like seeing part of a picture and coming up with a conclusion based on the part. We've dealt with this in our media. We've dealt with this with our politicians. I've dealt with it in my professional life a lot, where people will take parts of information that are fragmented, piece them together to convey something that isn't really true. They can say that they didn't lie. Well, I got it from these pieces of email, but they've taken things out of context, presented them to their benefit, whatever that might be. It could be that they are trying to avoid accountability. It could be they're trying to persuade. It could be somewhere in the middle, but they are influencing out of context, which is dangerous. Decisions can be made, decisions that can affect the livelihood sometimes of organizations or individuals, the success or failure of projects or initiatives can all be hinged on proper context. And when we communicate with ourselves more honestly, and we provide ourselves with proper contents, we do due diligence when we're trying to make decisions, we'll mirror that when we are dealing with other people. These issues are always rooted in self-communication. And at some point, people have to consider the truth. People make a lot of these uncontextual decisions knowing what the truth is. They are choosing oftentimes to lack context purposefully, or change context purposefully, or be vague, or to have these fragmented conversations in an effort usually to avoid accountability, usually because they don't like conflict, they don't want to deliver negative information, or they want something so bad that they don't want to present any negative aspects that are potentially out there, and they only highlight positive. And by avoiding the negative, they hope to move the marker forward. They hope to persuade, to have ascension or affirmation of whatever it is they're trying to influence with their communication. For self-communication to benefit you or anybody else, it has to be honest. And it's really important that you don't construct misleading narratives, and that if you do, get yourself into a position where you're involved with somebody who is doing out of context communication, or they're not being vague or clear, and they're leaving within you questions about context, questions about the communication you had, follow that up. Follow that up with questions of your own. Ask for clarification, ask for context, press people to be accountable for what they tell you, dig deeper, and press the issue. It's really important that understanding is had, and when there is a lack of understanding, any question that you have been left with internally or externally must be put out there. And starts with honest self-communication, asking yourself, do I have everything I need to go along with where I'm at in this particular area of influence today? The takeaways today in self-communication are: proactively recognize the lies you tell yourself or that you might create for others with lack of contents. And when you do this, you'll enhance your self-communication. You'll begin to be more honest with yourself. Remain honest about your actions and reactions. That's a key to understanding yourself. When you're communicating yourself and you find yourself feeling a certain way because of communication, or feeling a certain way because of your thoughts, ask yourself why. Dig into that self-communication foundation and figure out what it is that's driving the underlying feelings that you have, the underlying questions that you have. Writing can provide a really healthy outlet for you when you're self-communicating, or if you're angry. You can use self-communication to de-escalate a situation. You can sit down and write out what you're feeling. Read it back to yourself. That's self-communicating. Read back words that you want to blurt out to somebody in reaction, and read them and see if they truly are what you want to convey, and if they truly exercise and convey the emotion that you want to convey through your words, or are you just doing so out of emotion? And then when challenged by people who lack context or clarity in their communication, follow up with them with an understanding communication. Follow up with them and get context. Ask for points of clarity and force them to fill the gaps. I hope that building on this foundation of communication, understanding our self-communication, is moving us forward to a more clear and more contextual communication model for ourselves. And tomorrow we're going to talk about self-deception and how we trick ourselves and deceive ourselves into decisions through self-communication and external communication, and how we can combat that and make it work better for us so we don't deceive ourselves in our lives. I hope you have a great day. We will talk to you again tomorrow.